So I'm Amanda Levitt. I am a master's student in the Department of Sociology, and I am presenting my thesis project that is in progress. So I'm really doing a very early prediction on the results that I'm going to get from it, but it's titled Trolls in Digital Age, Framing Fat Bodies on Social Media. I want to start with talking about the internet specifically. Obviously, we know the internet connects society, but I'm also, through this project and through other social research, we've also seen that it's not just a central function of our society and how we connect to each other, but it's also an extension of our society as well. Similarly, social media has not just allowed for individuals to connect, but it's also allowed for social movements to grow. We've seen this growth not just within the response to events that happened in Ferguson. We've seen that through the Black Lives Matter movement, but other communities, feminist communities are online, trans people build community online, and as do fat people as well. But there is a downside to it. Specifically in trolling, what a lot of people have also called bullying or cyberbullying. Some research has shown how they have defined it as it's speech that is disruptive, that they go into communities to talk about or to basically disrupt whatever is going on in the space. So there's research on a feminist forum that found that people were going into this community specifically to disrupt the space, stop the intent of the space, and really try to break it down so that it was no longer able to function. Other research has also shown that people who troll are sadistic and narcissistic. I find very interesting, but I do think that it's a little bit more nuanced than that. Talking about fat communities specifically, they have been online since the early 90s, mid-90s. Although the fat positive movement has been around since the mid-60s and 70s, the internet has really allowed for it to flourish, allowed for people to connect in a way that they were not able to offline. It has centered on social media sites like Tumblr and Twitter. Instagram is very big now as well, and it's allowed for people that may not have fat positive people around them, people that are challenging negative stereotypes about fat people, to connect and to build community with. Specifically talking about weight-based stigma and how it impacts fat individuals, we've seen that from the early 60s and 70s, there's been social research on fat people, more often than not looking at how we believe fat people exist in society. Fat people are more than likely framed as lacking willpower, being unintelligent, being lazy, that our bodies are out of control. So the idea is that because we place this emphasis on individual behaviors is the reason why people are fat. We assume that people who are larger than what we consider to be socially acceptable, that they are doing it because of something wrong with their character. I'm going to change the slide. We also see with fat people in the media that more often than not, Thoreau has found that fatness is more often than not framed as a public health concern, that we never talk about fat people as people. Instead, that it's all based on, again, weight being due to individual issues. And specifically as an example for this photo, Charlotte Cooper has called us headless fatties. The idea that fat people that are shown in the media that embody the quote-unquote obesity epidemic are basically treated as bodies, that they're dehumanized, that they're shown from the neck down. And that is, not just stigmatizing the fact that, fat people become bodies and they are disembodied from their reality and their humanity, but more, the bodies that are actually shown on television are a very, very small segment of the population. It's about 6.4%. So a very small portion of the people that we're seeing on television are actually that size. Similarly, when we talk about fat people, we also have to frame it as the give and take between privilege and discrimination. So what we see is that fat people deal with systemic and institutional discrimination in all facets of life, and it's particularly gendered. So fat women are more likely to make less than their thinner counterparts. Fat men, when they enter the workforce, make less than their thinner counterparts, but through their lifespan, they actually end up making more often. We also see that, because we frame fat people as lazy and unintelligent, then when they go into education, they're more likely to also have their character questioned as they're going through as well. You can go to the next slide. So because of that, bringing together the use of social media and also talking about that community, I was really interested in how trolling happens within online community spaces, and specifically talking about these two questions. So what is the perception of fatness in fat people and trolling messages, and then what tactics are used in the messages as well. Go to the next slide. So the data comes from the website This Is Thin Privilege. It started in August of 2012. User-submitted stories that center on the experiences of weight stigma, but give context for people that are not fat to understand the experiences that they are not dealing with on a daily basis. Data was collected through submissions, Ask and Discus comments, which is basically like a plugin to put comments on a blog post. It was collected over a calendar year. So May of 2013 to May of 2014. The data set was huge. It was 4,200 comments. Because I am also part of this community, I'm taking a random sample of it just to give a more generalizable perspective of what is actually going in on the data set, and then also to kind of step away as an insider so that my meeting part of this blog did not impact my data. Go to the next slide. So these are early results. These are major themes. Huge trigger warning on the fact that I'm putting really horrific things up on the board. But main themes for fatness and perception of fatness is fatness and stigma related to fatness is an individual issue. Discrimination is a choice. And then an emphasis on disease and death. Other examples of this: lose some weight, you fat bitch, instead of hating on people who take care of themselves. And the tactics that are used are questions, asking for clarification. One of the most common is, don't you know fat people are unhealthy? Disputing statements, so trying to target the things that are being spoken about and explaining why what happened isn't true. Personal attacks and threats. Physical violence, assault, rape. To be specific, more often than not, rape is no one will even ever want to rape you. Very specific in the fact that we frame fat people as unattractive, desexualized, that you cannot even have the opportunity of being sexually assaulted. And then also threats of doxing, which is releasing private information that may not be available online. So discussion and some of the things that I've found that I think are related. So it not only reflects mainstream discourse about fat people as an individual issue, as fat people being inherently diseased, and then also as fat people being out of control and unable to control their eating and exercise, but then it also frames fatness and fat stigma as a choice. That it's not due to systemic or institutional issues, but instead it is due to the fact that fat people choose to be fat, and that is why they're dealing with discrimination on a daily basis. We also saw that looking at the tactics, and this is why I was really interested in this, is that regardless of the tactics that people are using, they are still, whether they're asking a question or whether they're sending a threat, they're saying the same things about fat people. So they're really creating a, really not challenging or changing or increasing their hostility or the way that they're framing fatness as they change their tactics. And so, my main takeaway is that it's really related to systemic issues, that it's not necessarily just individuals going online and being hateful, but instead is related to this mainstream discourse about fat people. Next slide. And then future research, social research that looks into social behavior and how it reflects on offline behavior, and then also how anonymity, which I always struggle with saying for some reason, how that possibly changes the way people act, or at least reflects that this extent of hostility that happens might possibly be due to people feeling like they're safer because they don't have their identity shown. Questions?
I have a question. The headless, fat image,
You can totally say headless fatties. It's okay.
Headless fatties. I remember how you put it. So. But it's interesting because if you've got a comparison, or you considering like a comparison like they do that with thin people. It's almost like they're, and you'll go back to the anonymity issue, it's almost like they're trying to protect the fat person from saying, we don't want you to be shamed, but we still want to show that like there's fat people.
Yeah, so, and more often than not, that happens when, they're showing, like, people that they don't want to get consent for having them on television. So they will do it where, where they will show, like, groups of people. But I know that there's been people that have shown that it's really hard. They get those, those film clips of, like, all these fat people in public. In reality, it takes them, like, 12 hours to get, like, 4 people. And so that has happened. I think that would be really fascinating to do as well, to see, and possibly something that I would do in the future. But I do think that's, it's definitely different, and more often than not, I mean, what fat person wants to be the embodiment of an epidemic? Like, so I'd be like, hey, we're going to talk about obesity, like, let's put you up on television. Like, no one would be like, sure, sign me up. So, who else had a question?
Yeah. Thank you so much for the presentation. I was just wondering if you could speak more to the systemic issues that you mentioned at the end. Like, what are some of the other systemic issues?
So lack of access to healthcare. For women, that means not even having access to maternity care. And last year, we saw that Plan B finally came out and said that women normally over 165 pounds can't use it. They don't tell fat women more often than not that birth control doesn't work either, that the most reliable form of birth control is an IUD. But you can also just not have access to maternity care. The doctors don't have tables, depending on your weight, to even take care of you. They'll tell you to lose weight before you get pregnant. And then also when going to the doctor, having them constantly say, well, anything that's ailment that's happening to you is because of your weight, and that it's not because of anything else that's going on. February more likely to live in poverty, more likely to lack access to safe places to move their bodies, fresh foods, all these things that we consider to be health that, as we frame fat people as inherently disease, they don't have access to it more often than not. That's off the top of my head. But anyone else?
Speak to what percentage of the comment section are more fat positive compared to the frequency in which you control the comments?
So it's a little hard. So this blog specifically gets targeted by Reddit and 4chan, which are like the scum of the earth. That's where the images of like naked celebrities came from, like all these other things that, So more often than not, it is about 80% trolling and then about 20% fat positive. But it's really hard to say how many of that is the same person, how many of that is a trolling tactic. I mean, that's one thing that a lot of, that we've seen happening on other forums is that they'll actually do it as a game. So if you can get posted, you get a certain amount of points. So if you get a response, you get a certain amount of points. If you're able to shut their website down and actually, get so many people going to their website that it makes it so that their internet provider stops allowing people to access it and it crashes their site, that gets points. So it turns into a game in a way. So it's it depends. The thing that I find interesting is that we would get huge ramp-ups of troll messages when anything that was about obesity happened in the mainstream media. So if a study came out that got a lot of press, we would be constantly sent it to prove that everything we were talking about was wrong. So it's, Anyone else? Or I think I'm over.
You're over.
Sorry.